Hey everybody, welcome back to the 50-50 Showcase. This is episode 43. Sao, she is super reflexes, Titan weapons, Mew mastery. She's a tank. She's my third tanker of 5, my 43rd character of 50. I'm trying to show as many of my different level 50 characters as I can, up to, of course, 50 total that I'm playing on the City of Heroes game, the Homecoming servers, the Excelsior Shard, trying to just showcase several different builds, play styles, tactics, strategies, what have you, just to give a little information out there for maybe a new player looking for something, a new build to try out, maybe some old player and you're a veteran and been doing this game for years and years and years like me, trying to find something new, whatever. That's what we're all about. I think, and I dare say that this combination, SRTW Mew, is probably one of the rarest combinations. That was one of the things I was shooting for in some of my level 50, some of my builds. Just playing stuff that nobody else plays, and maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe because it's a sucky combination. I don't know. I'm gonna find out for myself. So SR Super Reflexes, if you don't know, this is a high defense type of build, relying upon just not being hit. So you'll see my build here is going to target or try to attempt to build as much defense as I can get within reason. I never like go super over the top with that sort of stuff anyway. Titan weapons, more common, I would say, definitely amongst scrappers. It's known as a big hitter, heavy damage. It's a little bit slow though. So kind of the idea is to take the two fast, rechargy, nimble super reflexes, and then Titan weapons, big, slow, meaty swings, and fuse them together. And see if I can speed up Titan weapons with using SR's nimbleness and mobility. And then Mew just kind of puts a little bit of cherry on the top with some more thematic kind of energy attacks, that sort of stuff. Even my dog agrees that it's a cool idea. But Mew has some decent AoE attacks, so this build has a lot of AoE. Titan Weapons is known for that. A bunch of small little cones, some PBAoE spinny stuff. And Mew, I think, has some of the stronger amounts of just cone and targeted AoE type of attacks as well. So she can defend herself literally with defense and then lay out some damage with some speedy, recharge heavy attacks both from Titan weapons and from Mew. So let's take a look at the build so you can see what the heck I'm talking about and see if it makes any sense to you. All right, so here she is. Mew Mastery. Let me scoot this up a little bit so you can see it. All right. Click mids. There we go. So I got most of Mew. I got 4 out of the 5. And then I took everything from Super Reflexes, everything from Titan Weapons. And part of that is because I'm a noob as far as these power sets go. I haven't played Super Reflexes before this character. I had one way, way, way back on live, like in the first year of the game, maybe even the first month of the game, way, way back for all the defense nerfs and stuff. So my knowledge of it is very, very limited. So I took everything, and you usually do take everything in your melee sets and or your defense sets anyway. So I don't think this is anything unique or different. But I did take everything. Part of that's just because I'm trying to figure out what these powers do. Titan weapons, same thing. I took everything. So maybe you pros out there who have done Titan weapons, like, oh, you don't need to take blah blah blah. That power is crap. Maybe I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out, right? That's part of the process here. That's part of something else I'm trying to showcase is what do all these powers do, and how do they synergize or not. So I took them all, experiment around and see what I can do with this thing. I don't obviously therefore have a bunch of pool powers. I've got hasten for the speed boosting, combat jumping for a little bit more defense, and that's it, right? I mean, that's only 2 power pools I took, and then I've got Mew, like I said. So this is, maybe atypical. I don't know. Now, beyond that, if you take a look at super reflexes, it's a bunch of defensive powers. You've got a toggle melee defense with some confuse resistance. You've got focused reflexes, which is another toggle. There's your range defense. Your third big toggle is your AoE defense here. So you have positional defenses with focused fighting, focused senses, and evasion. So those three for sure you're taking, and you're going to slot them up. I've slotted mine with reactive defense power sets here. Reactive defense with just 4 slotting. It's pretty much going to cap your defense, as you can see here. You know, pre enhancement diversification is 87%, but with ED I'm down to 60%. So I've got max defense out of these things. When I turn on my incarnates, you'll see that'll be actually a little bit better. So the big thing I'm looking for here are the set bonuses. So set bonuses, a lot of the things I went for, most of my sets, as you look at them, are some resistance, some damage resistance. Because what I was trying to do is what I've done before, and I try to create this layered, damage mitigation system. So let me shut off this defensive suite for a second. So I've got, pretty solid defense powers here. I'm, 40, 50% with my positional stuff. That's pretty good. Again, I haven't turned on my incarnate stuff yet, so it's going to get better. And then my damage resistance, I've got, 40% for smash lethal. That's one of the, those are the two most popular probably. Damage types. Energy is pretty popular. That's 30 some percent. Fire is pretty, common. You're going to see that a lot, 26. And even psionic, which is rare in the earlier game, but I think it's way more frequent in the late game. I've got pretty decent numbers there at 25%. So I didn't want to rely completely on just not getting hit. I tried to get some damage resistance in there as well, because I have no way to self-heal, right? There's no healing ability in super reflexes or Titan weapons. So you're either not getting hit or you're going to take a beating. That's pretty much the way SR works. So I want to try to mitigate that a little bit with some damage resistance here and there. So that's what you're going to see with a lot of my set choices, like reactive defense, right? I'm getting some smash lethal, I'm getting some fire cold. And I put that in those 3 main powers toggles that I was talking about. Focus fighting's got it. Focus senses has it, and so does evasion. So those are like your big 3 toggles. Then beyond that, you're gonna likely take these auto powers. So the autos, you don't have to click them, you don't have to activate them; they're just on. They don't cost endurance, but they're usually giving you the least amount of bang for your buck. So agile is going to boost your range defense a little bit, but not as much as the range defense you're going to get from focus senses. So for instance, focus senses is giving you defense, like I've got 29, almost 30%, the way I've got it slotted. Whereas, let me unlock that. Whereas agile is going to give me defense of 7.5. So even though it's free and you're running it all the time, it's nowhere near the numbers. But I've got it, right? Obviously, it's going to help stack with. Oops, I didn't mean to unclick it. Oh no, I wiped my power. 1 second, let me fix that. I'll be right back. All right, restarted my cell build here. But anyway, so your focus senses, your focus fighting, those are toggles, right? And then agile here, that's an auto. It's about a third as good. I did slot the heck out of it with Luck of the Gamblers. Again, I'm looking for set bonuses that are going to help me survive. So Luck of the Gamblers can give me some global recharge bonus, which Titan Weapons needs. Titan Weapons, in my opinion, needs a lot of recharge in order to be pretty good. But it also gives me some more damage resistance, as you see with 5 slotting smash lethal. Gives me some accuracy, gives me some hit points, some regeneration. That's helping survivability. I'm also, don't want to overlook this, reactive defenses. I also got some extra hit points. So with those, 2 different defense sets, I'm getting bonus HP. Dodge is another one of my powers, another one of these auto defense powers that you have in SR. That's melee defense, so I've got that. I've got that 4 slotted. I didn't have the Luck of the Gambler in that one, but I do have it 4 slotted for some more hit points and regen. Lucky is your auto defense to AoE. So you got 3 toggles that are melee, range, AoE. You've got 3 autos that are the same thing, melee, range, AoE. So those all add together to give you some really solid defense numbers. And then the way I just slotted it was to try to get some extra damage resistance, some extra hit points, some extra regeneration, that kind of stuff. So that's what you're seeing with those 6 powers that I've taken. Other than that, you've got Practice Brawler, which is your big Mez protection. It's got knockback, disorient, hold, sleep, and immobilize in it. So I've got that. Just a couple of recharges in there just because that is a click power. So it's on a timer. So when you click it, okay, take a look at this. It's recharging every 60 seconds and its duration is 120. So it only lasts for 2 minutes. So if you don't try to get some extra recharge in here, you run the risk of your practice brawler expiring before its recharge. Because normally its recharge is 200 seconds. So there's that 80-second gap of no mez protection. No mez protection with some sort of tank or brute is really, or, scrapper, stalker. That's not a good idea. Generally speaking, you're a major target in any sort of fight because you're right in the melee. Especially as a tank, you're taunting and bringing all this aggro on you. You can't afford to be stunned, held, slept, or whatever. So you need to get practice brawler firing over and over again. So that's why you see I've got a couple of recharges in here. They're level 50s, and I've actually had them plus 5 with some boosters. So my recharge in those is really good. This is a perma power. It's gonna definitely recharge before it expires, and it gives me those mez protections that you can see. So that's 7 of the powers so far. Which other ones did I skip so far? Yeah, talk about that, talk about that, talk about that, talked about that one. Talked about dodge, talked about evasion, lucky. Oh, then your other one is quickness. This is another power that this is probably maybe the one skippable power I would say so far. I don't. Maybe you don't need the autos. I suppose you could go lean on defense if you were wanting to risk it. But anyway, quickness is maybe the one power you don't need. Its main thing is it's boosting your movement speed. So that's why I have run speed in here, another 50 plus 5. But it also boosts your overall recharge. So remember, one of the things I was trying to do was get as much recharge as I could, so that Titan Weapons is going to be, clickable and throwing out big old haymaker shots left and right. So it boosts your recharge by 20%. I've got that, plus I've got Hasten, which is going to boost my recharge another 70%. So that's like 90% recharge right there between those two powers. So I got the movement speed, I got the recharge with it. The other, thing that you can't just ignore because it's also useful is resistance to slows. So anybody tries to hit you with a minus recharge, hit you with a movement speed, slow. This quickness will help resist some of that. So you are going to get some, mez protection in that sense out of that power. The other thing I didn't mention is that focus fighting does have confusion resistance in it, so that's another type of mez. So that's another reason you'd want to take it. And a lot of these, toggles, focus fighting, they have something besides just defense. Like focus senses has perception, so that's going to help you from being blinded and minus to hit, that kind of thing. And they're also giving you debuff resistance. So if you're getting defense debuffed, that gives you resistance to those. That's very useful. Again, ability, you'll see that over here in evasion as well. Dodge has some resistance to defense debuff. It has resistance to, what is that? Resistance to damage debuff, I think. Let me just see. So dodge, it says you have the ability to innately dodge some melee attacks and resist defense debuffs. Dodge also grants you minor damage resistance to damage except for toxic and psychic. So dodge is useful because it's going to give you a little bit of oomph in damage resistance. What is the number on that? I'm not sure. It says 0 up here, so maybe I'm misreading it somehow, but not exactly sure. It's supposed to give you some damage resistance. Maybe you gotta do something special with it. Let me just see if it says anything else. It gives you damage resistance to everything except for toxic and psychic. This resistance is only available as you lose health, but improves your hit point. But improves as your hit point declines. Alright, so if you're taking damage, dodge starts to kick in and give you some damage resistance. Okay, that's interesting. So if you start getting hit, it kicks in. Very good. Anyway, so your defense powers don't just have defense, they have some debuff resistance, some mez protection on top of everything else. And then the last thing I'll say about Super Reflex is it's one of the only power sets that I take like a tier 9. At least I took Elude on this one. And Elude, that's your God mode defense power. So if you take a look at Elude's description over here, it's plus defense, plus speed, plus recovery, resistance to defense. It gives you plus special. If you take a look at all the description on that, it's your capstone power. Everything's getting boost: running speed, jump height, endurance recovery, resistance to defense debuffs. However, when it wears off, that's the problem. You crash. You have an endurance crash. So when a loot wears off, you're left drained of your endurance, and your recovery drops to zero. So a bunch of your toggles will crash along with the loot. That's the problem with it. It does give you God mode defense. So if you take a look at my numbers here, right, I'm sitting around mid 40s or about 50. But when I click elude, I'm jumping about 100%. So it gives me huge boost to defenses. And the duration on that is pretty good. Let me see if I lock this in place. Duration 180 seconds. So that's 3 minutes of, pretty much untouchability. Right? But then you have the crash when you're done with it. The recharge is not great. It's normally 1,000 seconds. That's huge, right? I've got it down to 300 and some change, so a little bit more than 5 minutes. So it's going to be 5 minutes before it recharges, and then it's active for about 3 minutes. So I've got this 2.5 minute long gap between those two. So it's not an every spawn ability. It's usually you're going to click it when you're in a really tough fight. But then watch out, it's going to crash. So if you're on a team that's just steamrolling, you're usually maybe not going to use it, because then that takes you out of the fight for, I think, about 10 seconds before you can start recovering your endurance again. So it's dangerous because of that. So that's the main thing here with super reflexes. I did take the tier 9, which a lot of times I don't take it on an armor set. Because usually that's some sort of self-res or a whole bunch of damage resistance. And typically with my set bonuses, I don't need it. I've already got a bunch of resistance or whatever I'm trying to build for. So that's why I usually don't take it. I did take it here just to play around with it and see what it does. And it has come in handy every now and then. Now, next is your Titan weapons. That's your big old, swinging attacks. You've got a lot of cones, a lot of AoE. So if you take a look just through the powers themselves, you got defensive sweep, melee cone, crushing blow. That's just a single target attack. Titan sweep. That's a melee cone. Taunt, of course, is taunting. Follow through. That's another melee attack, but you need to have momentum built up. Build momentum. That's essentially your build up damage and plus the hit bonus, but it does give you momentum. Momentum is Titan Weapon's thing. It's its shtick. When you have momentum activated, all your powers are going to recharge faster and animate faster. So if you take a look as an example, here's momentum. I'll show you in a second. So for instance, crushing blow. If we lock that in place, you can see that the recharge and crushing blow is 2.9. The cast time is 2. If I have momentum built up, recharge drops to 218, cast time drops to 1.2. So, it's going to speed up your attacking. That's the other reason why I went with a lot of recharge. So I got a lot of recharge. If I take a look at my totals, right, my recharge sitting at $1.25. Momentum makes things recharge and move even faster on top of that. That's why I have hasten. That's why I've got quickness. So I'm really trying to leverage a lot of speed and recharge boosting, both from super reflexes and then my pool powers, and then, for instance, luck of the gambler slotting to make momentum and Titan weapons faster, stuff coming back even quicker, so I can just unleash a bunch of these cone attacks. So anyway, build momentum. That's going to boost your momentum power. You've got rend armor. There's another big old single target attack. Whirling smash. There's a PBAOE. So there's another, big old hitting a bunch of guys. Arc of destruction is another cone. So you got cone, PBAOE. You got cone and you got cone. So what's that? 3 cones and a PBAOE in just Titan weapons alone. So you're going to be hitting a lot of targets. I've also taken Electrifying Fences, which is a targeted AoE. Ball Lightning is targeted AoE. Static Discharge is a ranged cone. So I've got lots of cones, lots of AoEs, lots of recharge. These powers are going to be clicking and flying, going crazy. Of course, that's going to create a potential for just exhaustion. So that's why I have to be mindful of my recovery versus my endurance drain. So I have also slotted a bunch of abilities to get my reach, not my recharge, but just my blue bar to recharge as fast as I can and get as much of that. And so I've got, for instance, the Numena's down here in stealth to help with that. Of course, stamina has 50 plus 5 slotted in it. But I've got a lot of powers with some endurance management, some recovery that I've tried to slot in here as well as you look around at the various things. So I went for recharge. I went for some damage resistance as I could get it. And then I've also had to watch out for just crashing with endurance and because these Titan weapon powers are not cheap. If you take a look at several of them, they've got heavy endurance costs. I've got the sliding's pretty decent, so your defensive sweep is running about 4 right now. Crushing blow, that's only cost me 4 or 5. But normally it's 8. Titan sweep is 10 something, but I've got it down to 8. Follow through is 10 and a half. I've got it down to 5, 6. Rend armor is 15, almost 16. I've got it down to 10. Whirling smash is 13, almost 14. I've got that down to 8. Arc of destruction is 15. I've got it down to 9. So I try to get as much endurance reduction recovery as I could manage on top of everything else I was shooting for. And so I think I've got it pretty good. My recovery is showing like 4.6 right now, which is really good. My end drain's only 0.5, so, and that's not even with my stuff activated, my incarnate stuff, which I'll talk about in a second. So anyway, there's the basic idea, right? Lots of defense, lots of speed, swing, 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 hit, 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 go sick, and just beat down some fools as best as you can. Then you throw in the incarnates on top of everything else. I went for, and I'm sure you can probably guess some of the things I targeted. Agility, I took that. That gives me recharge. It's going to give me defense. It's also give me endurance modifications. So that's going to help with any sort of endurance issues I'm having. Right, so click that. Diamagnetic, that has, I went for the minus to hit. It was the big reason because every one of my attacks now can proc some minus to hit debuff. That's going to help me not get hit. I've already got high defense, but now I'm also lowering the to hit of enemies, so I won't be hit as much. Ionic, your big old ranged attack, chained AoE, that kind of matches with my theme here of Mew Mastery energy. I took Sears. I like Sears, right? They've got, I think they throw out Fortitude on you, so that's going to help with your defense. I grabbed Ageless. That's helping with the endurance, the recharge, recovery, which I said was going to become an issue. So I'm just swinging like crazy with this character. And then I've got Melee Radial as my hybrid. This boosts defense. This boosts regeneration as you are in melee contact with a bunch of enemies. I think it goes up to like 8 something like that within the 10 foot. 9 enemies it's shown here. So 9 enemies, you're getting boosts of defense for everybody, that's within that radius of you. So if you take a look at the numbers, as I start looking at that, now I've got, 155, 158, 153. My defenses are really good here. Defensive sweep, I didn't mention this yet. If you use your defensive sweep single target attack, let me scoot that down. It will essentially proc a defense to melee and smash damage. So if I activate that, you can see my melee defense is 176. This character just it won't be able to get hit too well. Let me shut off elude. That's why my recharge, or sorry, my recovery numbers were looking so good. So let me go back here and show you the challenge of the recovery without this stuff. So right now I'm 2.9 versus 0.5, which is not bad, right? I mean, that's what, the 5 to 1 or something like that. So I've got her slotted really well to protect against the endurance issues. So I'm happy with that because SR is pretty endurance light. That's one of its bonuses. You only got 3 toggles that you're worrying about. It's Titan weapons is the problem. But once I've got, agility going and ageless going, I mean, my recovery's, 500%, 9 per second. I mean, come on. It's crazy. And then if I elude on top of that, because elude gives you what, more recovery. You're not going to run out of endurance. 500 might even be capped probably. So I can pretty much cap my recovery. My endurance drain is really low. I mean, if I'm swinging like crazy, it's obviously gonna spend a lot of endurance, which you'll see that happening. But there you go. I think that covers the main concepts here of Sao's build. Speed and just brutal slamming Titan weapons. Is she gonna, tank the entire strike force for you? Probably not. But she can get in there and just lay down some smack, draw some attention, hopefully avoid getting hit, and then just unleash with Titan weapons in a arc of destruction, just like the tier 9 name for that attack. She's gonna just destroy a bunch of stuff. All right, enough talking about the build. Let's take a look at it in practice. Gonna run a couple solos, gonna run a couple teams, and you can see for yourself if I'm lying or not. All right, I'll catch you in the next vid.